Everyone has a story to tell, and that is why here every Saturday on Look Up TV we bring you stories of people who are impacting the society in a positive way. And on today's show we have Victor Muniu.
Thank you so much, Nalima.
Yes, you're a pastor, author, mentor, and so many other titles.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking a little about each and every of them because you impact society.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is why you're here.
Yeah.
Because we want people who are inspiring change positively. Yes.
Then I think I fit the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can take us through maybe your journey. You are doing many things right now, but where did it all begin?
Well, I would say it's a concussion of everything since I was born. Because now when you talk about things like writing, it's developed at a later stage in my life when I was doing my undergrad in theology. But the journey started when I was in primary school. So that's like writing. I remember the first composition I ever did. You know how you told it was opening of school. Yeah. So you write a composition of how your holiday was. Yeah. So you can imagine, see, me, I'm being honest and truthful. That was the most boring composition my teacher ever read. Because it was just a repeat. Woke up, played football. Auntie called us, auntie is a house help. To come and eat. And then went out, played, back outside. So it was a repeat. So when I took the composition home, my mom looked at it and was like, "Aye." So she told me, when you're writing a composition, you don't have to like write the whole truth. Just be creative, add things that even did not happen. Yes. But somebody was like, okay, so that's what happens. So from that point onwards, I took it upon myself. The teachers would give us assignments for the whole class, but I would go an extra mile. I would just want to write my own composition. So, and that's how my creative ability, my imagination started working at that particular point. So that's what I'm saying. It's a concussion of many things. I wouldn't like point out this is where it all started. So yeah. So as I look back, I realize this one contributed to this one. The other part is when I got saved, which now was also a key decision and a key foundation to who I am today. So I would say it's a combination of many things. It's a combination of many things that have brought me here. To this place. Yeah. And you are a pastor. Yeah. And with pastors, now we want to understand you. Was it a calling? Why are you a pastor? Well, when I got saved, for me, I think it was more of a desire. It was more of a desire than a calling. I normally tell people I never got the privilege of having these dramatic experiences and encounters where somebody says, I saw in a dream or something. Me, I was just praying because my prayer time and my study time were to build my walk with God. So it is at that point where I felt a hunger and a desire. So I started serving God. I remember the church I was at that particular time. So I started as lay workers, people who come and wipe seats and everything. Anytime there was something to be done in the church, I would avail myself. At some point I felt, there's still more. There's still more that I feel I can do. So I joined drama team. At some point, even in high school, I was in drama. So I joined drama team and did acting for a while, but I still felt not enough. Something. So at that particular time, I wanted to join a dance group because I was good in dancing. I believe I am still good at dancing. In a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rate yourself? No, trust me, I am good. I am good. So you'd give yourself like a 9? Yeah, give me a 9. Just give me a new style. Give me 2-3 days. YouTube, I look at it, grasp,
we're on.
and we are on at my age with all these beards. So when it comes to dancing, I would say I'm good. So at that particular time, I felt I can join dancing. So while in the process of joining dancing, I met a couple of friends who were going for missions to high school. So I was like, hey, not a bad idea. Let me just go and see what happens out there. So when I went there, I felt, interesting. This is something I would really love to participate in. And so that's how slowly by slowly, so I felt, not bad. So you're given 15 minutes to preach, just encourage people. It's normal, you're normally told, just encourage the audience, encourage the boys, encourage the girls. And slowly by slowly, that's how it started. And people are like, hey, there's something in you, there's something in you. And that's
a lot of pastors have big testimonies of how they got saved. Some were thieves. And, you know, they were in the darkness and they have all these big stories to tell. Is your story similar when you saw the light?
Well, not really. Well, for me, I would say, I was rowdy. I was very rowdy from as early as primary school. I was a headache to all teachers, both in primary school and in high school. But at some point, I would play chinyamaj. You know that crook who teachers know you're just a bad person. But when there are cases, I remember there was one time in high school, we organized a strike. And so when when the case was being investigated and people were being suspended, the principal asks, how has Victor's name not been mentioned in this particular, and he knows Victor is part and parcel of this. So I would say I was that kind, but I wasn't very rowdy. One thing that helped me, again, as I'm saying, I am a concoction of many things. One thing that really helped me not to overdo certain things is when I was growing up, I knew and I believed I would be a footballer, a professional footballer. And I had started chatting Manchester United Youth Academy. So I would send them letters, and when my mom would come to school, she would come with the response from the youth club. So I knew at some point that I would be a professional footballer. So that meant I would not indulge and participate in a lot of things which I felt would jeopardize my career as a footballer. So that also really contributed. Though here and there, you go to the estate, you go to primary school, you go to high school, just mention Victor or Muniu, and people will be like, that one.
We know that guy.
We know that guy. Bad news. But that aspect where I felt, I'll be a footballer one day. To this day, I still play football just to keep myself busy and young. So that is also something that really kept me under control, so that because I remember at some point people were like, hey, I was the kind of person who, when anything went down, people wanted me there. They were like, Victor, there's just something about you. Even when you're doing bad things, your presence.
You bring the life.
You bring the life. And people would be like, okay, even if you're not going to do anything, just you being there, we feel like we are a complete squad. So I was all that, but there were some points where I had some reservations. So I would say I had my dark side, but it wasn't as pronounced as for others would be. I remember at some point, there was a time I wanted to venture out in pickpocketing, and so at some point I was like, okay, what if I get caught and we are given a beating and then we die? And that at that time I was in Form 2. So, and we're just trying out, and you're like, okay, we can try pickpocketing. So it is at that instance I was like, I think this is a wrong idea. So That's me. There has been instances of very many what you'd call bad things, but now me I won't come and say ati unajua nilikuwa mwizi wa bunduki, sijui nilikuwa mchawi, as in I was not on the extreme side. Yeah.
Okay, and talk about now how you started Lifepool Chapel.
Well, Lifepool Chapel is a very interesting church, a very interesting journey for me, because it's a journey of faith. Because Lifepool Chapel started in the year 2011. We were with 4 of my friends. We've grown up with, and others we met. And where we were, the church we were serving with, at some point we felt it was a good church and everything, but we felt, the proverbial eagle in a chicken kind of a situation. We felt, okay, the environment is good, but we feel our feathers have overgrown. We want to fly. So that, of course, caused some friction here and there with some people. So we just went and requested. We feel if we linger further and more in this environment, instead of working, we'll be using our energies always in the offices. Oh, there's this case, so and so, so and so. So we were released, and we decided to start Lifepool Chapel, and it has been an interesting journey for me. Coming from a point of, because the church where I was, it was very stable. It was a good church.
So you like broke out from a mother church?
I wouldn't say broke out. Breaking out is where people take a chunk of the members from that church, and then they go start their own church. Us, we just left the 4 of us, and we started, we just went and said, do you want to be released? So I wouldn't say it was a breakout, because a breakout is where now you koroga people from that church and they follow you. Half the people
wants to follow me. Let's go.
So for us, we just went and said we request to be released, that we go and express our gifting elsewhere and in a different format and in a different environment. And thus far, I would say it's been an interesting journey. So far, we have Lifepool Chapel Outer Ring Road, which is the mother church. We have Lifepool Chapel Kitengela. We have Lifepool Chapel Kisumu. We have Lifepool Chapel City Center. And then now we are planting 2 more churches within the next few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And looking at ministry in general, for me, growing up, it was more serious than people perceive it these days, in terms of people think the miracles that used to be performed when you were babies in crusades, they were real, and these days then there's just no one who is performing real miracles. So you are a pastor, you know the gifts, and there are also the many false preachers. So how is it for you trying to go into the world and preach the gospel in the midst of all these controversies?
Well, I think I would say the challenge is there, but it's not a unique challenge, and neither is it new, because even when you look at the Bible, it has instances of genuine and false prophets, pastors, people who, and it's not only in ministry or what you'd call the church setting. We have quack doctors, we have everyone
in different sectors.
In different sectors, there's always even when you talk about currency, there's the real money and there's the fake money. So it's bound to happen that at some point in every sector you will find genuine people and you will find quacks. But I normally tell people, just because let me use the example of the environment. We have oxygen, and we have many gases which are not healthy, because you're told if you inhale this gas for long periods of time, then your health is at risk. But you don't say you'll not breathe, because in the midst of the oxygen, you will encounter and experience these other gases.
Yeah.
The same with church. And that's what I like telling people, that in the midst of the quacks, there are genuine people. And now you can't do yourself a disservice by disconnecting and saying, oh, you know me, I'll not go to church, I've quit church and everything. Yet there's a part in your life that church plays, which is very critical. So it is for you to just and the good thing is a fake cannot last for long. Just give them time. A fake cannot last for long. So the challenge is there, but for me, I go with the knowledge that I am genuine. So even if I go and get rejected, and of course, people will always talk, whether you're genuine or not. People will always talk.
They'll always have something.
Yeah, so when you go, they will say this. So for me, the comfort is I know I am coming from a genuine and a clear conscience. So if somebody rejects me, it's their loss. Because I'm like, okay, I am not a quack. I have no bad intentions. Normally we in our circle, we normally say, you see, for some, maybe there are people who say they were called from Siju when they were young and all that. But it's like for me, as I've told you, I knew I was to be a professional footballer. If not that, I was to be in the world of art, either a web designer, an architect. So it's not that when I joined ministry, it was past at Siju, I'm going there to do business. No, I was okay. I was to join Manchester United. So
you'd written letters.
I'd written letters.
Yeah.
You can ask my mom, and when she'd come to visit, she'd come with the correspondence, and they had given me the guidelines and the requirements for me to join the youth academy. So coming from that background, when somebody rejects me, I don't feel bad, because I know I am genuine, and I know whatever I'm doing with a pure conscience and for the benefit of mankind. So that helps me create shock absorbers when I find that there are people who will reject and offer some resistance, and such is life everywhere. I am sure even those people who are married, they will tell you they have been rejected. So rejection is part of life. So
and you mentioned finances somewhere, and now money is a big conversation, even when it comes to churches. Yeah, we have seen churches being in serious conflict because either of mismanagement, or either the pastors, some pastors have been accused of living very lavishly from the offering and tithes and everything. So what are your thoughts on the same?
Well, that's a very it's a very vast discussion, because the fact that it's never ending, it means there are always new angles. But what I normally say is that, one, before I was called, before I got into this space called ministry, growing up, I had my own desires as a human being. Like, for example, if life permits me and if God blesses me, I wouldn't mind owning horses. You see, that desire has always been there, and it is still there. So what people need to understand is that at some point, even these pastors, they have desires. You see, the way you want to have a very big TV to watch with your family, it's the same thing with the pastor. So if people would understand that, then it would be easier for them to understand that, okay, whatever these people are doing. Well, what I can say is that there are people who definitely are on the extreme, but then again, go look at, once you get to the ground, then you really understand. Because now you'll find that there's somebody who'll come and tell you, by the way, me and my wife are in business. But now you see, now when this other side, you just sing pastor.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing maybe he has other things that he's doing. So for me, I normally say, let's not be too quick. Let's not be too quick to castigate and to cast aspersions that these people are not genuine. They are eating off our money. And furthermore, you see, that's what I would say. It's part of that life in terms of when you talk about finances. Even the Bible itself, Jesus, at some point, the Bible says that there are certain women who supported his ministry financially. So when you talk about the issue of church and finances, you can never separate them. So the issues of mismanagement and all that now, that is individual cases. But now somebody comes and says, oh, you know, churches nowadays, they're all about money. Jesus himself needed money. So if Jesus needed money, then what makes us...
Then churches need money to run. And
of course, and that's what I'm saying. So for example, when you come to church, the electricity we are using, that has got to be paid somehow. When you go to the toilets, the water there when you're washing your hands, it has got to... Some of these churches, they don't own land. They are leasing.
Yeah.
So that means they have got to pay rent. So when you become shallow, you ignore such things, which are there. So at some point, and you see now, for me, I'm like, okay, I have been called. And you see, very interesting, like I can give you an example. Recently in our church, there was a lady who was very sick. So we were called and we went to visit her in hospital. But the interesting thing, even with the parents there, because of dealing with so many cases, you become like a master of everything. So when we were talking, and I just told this lady, this is your issue, A, B, C, D. And the doctor says, yes, your pastor is telling you the truth. Imagine that the doctor is now agreeing with what I'm saying. Somebody says their car has been, it has an issue. Who do they call first? No, passes, my cars, I am not a mechanic.
Like pastor knows everything.
You see, pastor knows everything. So you want us to be in that space where we know everything. Oh, Pasi, my children. Oh, what? Like even yesterday, as in every day. Yesterday I was working with some friends and I was on a very long phone call. So when I finished, those two ladies were like, do you know how long you've talked? And I was like, that's my life. As in at some point, I will just receive a phone call and I'll have to attend to that case. So now I have been hived out of what you'd call normal life.
Yeah.
And so I'm here. So even that thought of, by the way, what do these pastors eat? Now that we expect him to be there, we expect him to be the doctor, we expect him to be the mechanic. I was called recently to just go and deal with some snakes at a member's house, because at some point they and funny enough,
is that what servant leadership calls for?
well, not everyone, don't go everywhere. But you see, the fact that they felt okay, he's in a position, and somehow I have some knowledge about how to deal with snakes because of where I lived. We dealt with snakes. So now you see, now they're like, okay, hey, by the way, Pasi, snakes have been spotted in my house. Can you come?
Sort this.
So those are things that people don't see. Luckily enough for somebody like me, I would what you call an eclectic person. I love knowing. So about cars, about snakes, about animals, so I go somewhere, somebody says, hey, my dog is behaving like this, I have a dog. So I'll tell them, why don't you try ABCD? And they'll find out, by there, it actually works. So imagine, the pastor is all these things, but yet you don't want him even to enjoy the decency of just a decent meal.
Living well.
Living well.
Yes.
I'm
Okay, we'll continue with the conversation. We are taking a short break here on Your Story, right here on Look Up TV. But we'll be back to talk more about mentorship and the books that Pastor Victor Muniu has written. Don't go too far. Welcome back to the program. This is Your Story on Look Up TV, and today we are talking about ministry, mentorship, and also the books that Pastor Victor Muniu has written. And if you want us to talk about your story right here on the show, you can engage with us on the SMS platform. The number is 20374. 20374. Share your story with us for a chance to be on this platform and talk about your story of how you are changing lives and impacting the society in a positive way. So, Pastor, we were talking and you were voicing, like people don't understand the much work the pastors sort out. Like pastors are know-it-all and they're supposed to do it all.
I hear people say, kwani kazi ya pastor ni nini? Si ni kuhubiri tu on Sunday.
Like that's all they have to do.
That's all they have to do.
So
but
both of them,
you've forgotten in the middle of the week you called me to visit your sick brother in hospital. They forget all that, and so they're like, kazi ya pastor tu ni kuhubiri on Sunday. But those are shallow people. But people who are keen to like really understand and appreciate the work that pastors do. At some point, when you hear some people say we want to appreciate our pastor, we want to buy him a car, if it's genuinely from their hearts, that is what they want to do for their pastor, then it is a welcome gesture. Why not? I mean, he's suffered on your behalf. Pastors go through a lot for the sake of other people. So they have their suffering, and they they
deal with other people's
suffering. So I mean, if the people feel they want to honor and appreciate their pastor, because they're the ones who know what he means to them, how helpful he is to them. So when an outsider says, oh, these pastors, all they want is money, this group knows well what their particular pastor means to them. So if they decide this is what they want to do for their pastor, then they are allowed to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And ministers, they're held in very high, like you're supposed to have so much integrity.
Yeah.
And there have been a number of pastors that have been caught up in scandals. Could be, is it infidelity, cheating? So those are some of the issues that we have seen across news and many other places.
Yeah.
So what does the church, maybe your church, do in cases of such scenarios?
Well, first, you have got to understand that you're dealing with human beings. All of us are fallen, and we are in a journey of just being worked on. As the Bible says, he's the potter, we are the clay. So what normally happens is, for me, I tell people, I love dealing with case by case. Because of course at some point, and then the other issue is there's a lot of hearsay. So because now, again, there's the pressure of wanting to appear like you are the perfect church. So what happens is you just see a story and you land, because now you want to be seen as the church that deals with this. But now when you get into the cracks of the matter, you discover, these were all lies, because human beings are evil. So for me and for a church, of course, we are very hard but graceful when such situations occur. But we don't, it's not for show. It's not for public display so that Nelima can know, hey, so-and-so is being punished, so-and-so is... If this is the issue, we deal with you separately. Whatever disciplinary measures that are put in place, they are for you. They are not for the public. So for me, and what I've learned is that's why we encourage. We love dealing with case by case, so that as you go deep, you'll discover, hey, this much is the truth, this much is false accusations. So rather than just play to the public pressure and you just land so that you appear, hey, by these people, and then you get in there and you're like, hey, all these were lies. So you've damaged somebody, you've destroyed them. So now you have the double work, the false accusation, and the distraction that you brought upon their souls when you're just trying to appease and please people. Yeah.
Okay, and then I want to move on to mentorship.
Yeah.
But there's still that bit of the church and politics that we can just shortly talk about. A lot of churches have given politicians platforms in the churches, and constantly people say leaders, some of these leaders that you bring to speak in church are leaders who have a tainted image. They have accusations. Some even have court cases, and yet they're given platforms in church. So say for a church needs construction of a Sunday school or a school, so then they'll be like, let's call in a politician, they'll be part of the service, and then after that tunamaliza hiyo mjengo. Yes.
Again, we say that church is the hospital. So when you go to hospital, when you get somebody sick, that's the expectation. That should be the norm. So church is a place where, however much you may want to put restrictions, to some point you can't. Because you see, the interesting thing with God is that he works in mysterious ways. So he may choose to do whatever he wants to do with that politician when you're in that particular service. But that does not mean that, because of course there are people who we know, these ones should stay off from the pulpit. And again, I remember there was a time in our church you invited a politician, and the agreement was just come say hi to people and just sit down.
Don't politic here.
That was the agreement. Wow. The moment they got hold of the microphone like this, there's at some point you're like, okay, really, we had an agreement. So it's a catch-22 situation that honestly, and you see, the sad thing, or the unfortunate bit, is that these politicians are our brothers, they are our uncles. So if this politician is my uncle, at some point, the human side of me, if let's say if an uncle of mine runs for governor, well, chances are, if we have a project, you see, one, I'm calling him as a politician, one, and two, I'm calling him as a relative. So that bit of saying that we cut them off completely, it's going to be a bit hard, because they are your people. They are the representative of a particular constituency. So it's just an issue of praying and that hoping even for them, because now the responsibility is two-way. You see, if you know in your heart of hearts you're coming to create dissent and chaos, then even you as an individual, as the politician, you ought to be responsible. Because when I'm giving you this
the
platform, I'm giving you because I acknowledge you are a leader. So I am playing my part, but I expect you also to play your part, like the example I've given in our church. So at some point you're like, okay, so at some point people are like, hey, what happened? I told them, hey, because even in our church, the lead pastor is Luo, I am Kikuyu. And one thing we've always said in that in Life Pool Chapel politics, because now I am Kikuyu, he's Luo. What do you expect? There are people who would expect me to be pro the government because Uhuru is there. There are people who expect him
to take sides,
to be pro Raila, because, but for us in church, we say, and they have never known, even when politics is heated, they have never known our stand, because as a church we felt if we take that direction, especially from the pulpit, it would create a lot of chaos. But in our church, we have people who are aspiring
to be in those positions.
And we encourage them. And tell them, you go out, maybe you could be the Moses that we need, you could be the Joseph or the Daniel that we need. But from the pulpit, For us as a church, we have tried our level best, but as I've said, even the politicians are human beings with their own plans. So you may give somebody an opportunity out of goodwill, but now when they see crowds, they're like,
this is time.
strike. Yeah. So let's not bash the churches so much, because as I've said, there are people who genuinely, so you find maybe this one church, they are open to politicians, but now all churches are branded, you churches, but now there's this other church that is trying to be sober when it comes to matters of politics, so they are branded. So that's why for me, I normally encourage, whatever the situation, try to just deal on case-to-case basis.
Okay, now let's go to mentorship, which is something that you are big on and that you do actively.
Yeah.
So how did you get into mentorship?
Well, I think for me, I got into mentorship because you know how you get involved in somebody's life and you see them succeed or become what they envisioned to be. Yeah. And so that joy of just saying, and so when you hear somebody say, you are part of, like I remember there's a friend of mine who passed on a while back. And she became big in business, and everywhere she would go, she would tell people that I am here because of Victor. So that encourages you, so that when you meet somebody else and you're like, okay, we will let's do this. Let's do this. So for me, I got into that space, of course, by the mere fact also that I have been called, and my work is cut out to deal with people, work with people. But that joy of just seeing somebody comes who is neither here nor there, work with them, structure them, and become what they are called to be, or what they desire or they've envisioned to be. And so it gives you that sense of fulfillment. So that's what really encouraged me to get into that space of mentorship.
And to what capacity do you do it? On an individual basis, or do you have classes?
Well, I would say individual, because mentorship is very interesting. Apparently, of late, I've seen people who say, hey, we are offering mentorship to this group of people, to this group of people. Yeah. But when you look at it, it's just a day that has been organized, and somebody comes and speaks for 45 minutes, and that is termed as mentorship. Well, for lack of a better definition,
you beg to differ?
I beg to differ.
Okay.
Because now mentorship is a relationship where now you have somebody who has wealth of experience, and this other person now seeks to tap into this wealth. Now, if I can use an example of somebody I admire in this country, somebody like James Mwangi, we've seen all he's been able to do with Equity Bank. You want to tell me that wealth of wisdom, you can be able to tap into it in 45 minutes? It's
not very practical.
Not very practical. He will speak a few things here and there, but there are situations where you want to ask him, okay, when you faced this particular challenge, how did you go about it? He will tell you that day I didn't sleep at night, and then you discover, so I'm not the only one who has insomnia when I'm faced with challenges. So they take you through, and you're like, okay, I called so and so. So you're like, I also called so and so. So mentorship is very demanding. It's a relationship. It's a relationship where what you'd call the experienced works with the inexperienced until the inexperienced becomes experienced in whatever field that they are in. So at the moment, I would say I focus more on individuals. I find it better rather than just throwing things out there. But the idea of having a class, it's something that I am working on. So in the near future, it should be there. But at least, even with that class, you just can't have a class and say done. As in, you have to define and say, okay, so this relationship, it can be short term, long term. So even if it's a class, you can say, okay, we are going to have this class for, let's say, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Then from there we can gauge and say if we have been able to impart the wealth of wisdom to the inexperienced ones.
Okay, and now what is the place of mentorship in the current times, given that there is so much exposure? So some would say, I could go on YouTube, I could Google. There are so many ways in which we can acquire knowledge and guidance through something. Some people are YouTube athletes like Diego, and some people have taught themselves how to play instruments and different things via those different social media platforms. So then people would say, what is the place of mentorship during this era?
Well, it's a good thing we are in an era of what you'd call information dispensation, where there's a lot of information out there, which is a good thing. And we have what you've said, Julius Diego. But there is that personal touch. There is that personal touch. You see, the difference between what you'd call theoretical and experiential. For example, if you're going through a challenge, you'll Google on Facebook going through this challenge. They will give you a raft of measures that you can implement to be able to deal with that particular challenge. But now, mentorship, what it does, it contextualizes. Because now, what you have got to understand, there's now the aspect of wisdom. There's the aspect of wisdom, which is very key in mentorship. Now, I don't think we can say that online is a good place to tap wisdom.
Yeah.
So then again, what is wisdom? For me, I define wisdom as being able to pick the significant from the factual. Now, you see, when you Google will give you 100 pages of whatever you're looking for, and you'll see go to page 2, you'll have
you see 9, and then there's next.
So you Google and you're like, yeah, there's another 20 pages. All that is factual. But now you need the significant, because you can't read through all that. But having a mentor, because I know Nelima, I know her challenges, I know her weak points and her giftings. Now I dispense wisdom to you. I am able to point you out to the significant in the vast ocean of facts. So I can just tell you, Nelima, just do this. But Google, Facebook, and all these things, they will give you 1,001 articles. You won't get to it. And at some point you're like, okay, this one, and you're like, okay, this one, okay. But you see, I'm the one who knows you very well, and I know, okay, so you, how did you get here? How can you get out of here? What are the resources around you? So I am not discrediting technology in terms of intelligence out there.
Yeah.
It's a complementing platform, and it is a complementing arm. But at the end of the day, that what you'd call personal touch is very critical. But because now that is what now translates to wisdom. Yeah. So
there is still a part for human interaction.
That one you cannot do away with. However advanced we may be, because my experience, you identify better when I tell you. See, when that's what I'm saying, you Google how to overcome these challenges, it will give you very many articles. But now when you come and ask me, how did you overcome this? I'll tell you, I remember there was this day I did. You feel, by the way, because with mentorship, it puts a face to challenges, and it puts a conquest. It puts a face to the conquest of those challenges. So you're like, if he did it, then I can do it. But you see, now if you go to Google, at some point you'll be like, maybe these people are writing for the sake of writing. But now when we talk, you're like, if Victor says he slept hungry and I'm also sleeping hungry, and at some point maybe you are like, hey, but I remember there was a day he came and said, hey, miata sijakula, sijalala, get me something to eat. You feel
you can relate.
You can relate and you can connect. That's what I'm saying. With mentorship, it gives a face to the challenge and a conquest of that particular challenge. So you're like, it's actually doable. Yeah.
Okay. And mentorship. When we talk about mentorship, mostly we think about the young people. Is mentorship only for young people?
No. Mentorship is for everyone. Mentorship is for everyone. As long as you want to get in a certain space, because we are ever learning. And the day you stop learning is the day you become irrelevant. So you need people who will walk with you. And you see, even what you'd call life.
Yeah.
At some point you may feel like you have overcome everything, you have everything within your control.
Yeah, figured out.
For example, in our lifetime, did you ever think that in your lifetime you'll live it at a time where there's something called corona, a pandemic?
Like we'd have to walk around in masks.
It had to walk around in masks. So you see how I handled myself in this particular period as a leader and as an individual is beneficial to somebody else who, for example, if another pandemic arises, maybe 10 years from now, I'll be better placed because now I'll tell this person, this one, do like this, avoid this, yes, do this. So mentorship is for everyone, as long as you have goals, dreams, and desires. You still have something to learn, and there's somebody who has something to offer you for your journey.
Yeah. And then let's quickly talk about your books. If we can just have the books on set, please. So you have written 2 books.
Yeah, at the moment I have 2 books.
Yeah. So let's talk about why you decided to write them. Is it in line with the mentorship? Well,
I would say it is in line because now for me, from where I am, with the calling upon my life, there's a lot that God teaches me. There's a lot I learn from observation. And so at some point I'm like, okay, you may never get the opportunity to like speak, preach in every gathering, but you can still disseminate the wisdom that you have. And so I felt at some point writing books is equally good. And it has really, because I remember there was a time somebody took a book and went with it to Egypt. So while they were in Egypt, the church they were in, the pastors with the book, Your Life, Your Thinking, and they're like, okay. So the pastor asked this lady, once you're done reading, I can have the book. So the pastor was given. So when the ladies out there in Egypt, she comes and we chat, and she tells me, hey, guess what? Your book is actually being read by practically the whole church that I am fellowshipping in Egypt.
Wow.
And so it's like, and here I am eating my ugali, but there's a church out there. There are people who've queued to read my book, and at some point I was like, so I am preaching even when I am not preaching. So even when I am sleeping, but you're reading my book, guess what? I am still preaching. So that is what encouraged me to write the books. So far there are 2. There's a 3rd one which should have been out by December, but I put it on hold a bit.
Yeah.
And then there's also a 4th one that I'm calling it Corona Baby. Because at some point I was like, okay, now that
let's have the books on set.
We've been told we are not going anywhere. You can't leave Nairobi. So I felt, let me just use this time to just do something productive. And so I started working on my 4th book, which is halfway done.
Your Life, Your Thinking, what is it about?
Your Life, Your Thinking is basically about your life is a ripple effect of your thoughts. So it is basically trying to show people the impact that our thought life has and now tries to show them how they can take charge over their thought life.
Okay, and quickly, the upgrade.
Upgrade, as the title itself, upgrade. You need to upgrade yourself. As it is said, the only room that is never filled.
The room of improvement.
Room for improvement.
Yes.
So you see, iPhone, the first iPhone was a very good phone, but to this point, you still hear iPhone 6, iPhone 7, iPhone 8, they are always upgrading. So there's always room for improvement.
Same thing
even
with
in
cars. Same thing with cars.
Same thing
You're
with
like,
cars.
oh, that's a new model. That's a new Mercedes.
Yeah, so that's the concept of upgrade, that you must constantly and always seek and strive to upgrade yourself in regard to your career, your personal life, your education, just everything about you. There's always room for improvement.
Okay, and where are these books available?
The Kasanga bookshops, they have some branches in town, but if not there, somebody can inbox me, Facebook Victor Muniu, or Instagram Victor Muniu, Twitter Muniu Victor. I have a standard identity.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's easier to find me. Sina jina ya usanii bado.
Okay. Sawa. I feel like there's so much more that we could have talked about, but I can call you back next time.
I am a phone call away. I'm a phone call away.
Yes, and I will be reaching out.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I am honored.
Okay. And that is the story of Victor Muniu, who is a pastor, an author, and a mentor. You are watching Your Story on Look Up TV. I'm Nancy Nalima. Have a lovely evening.